Welcome back. This is my August Plan With Me video. It's going to be another fairly simple setup, but first, I'm really excited about a delivery I got minutes before I started filming this. I got a new pen from Goulet Pens, and so I thought I would actually start off this video showing how I ink up my fountain pens. But I just thought a quick little video. I'm going to show two different ways to ink pens that I use all the time. One is just the normal fill, and then the other one is using a syringe to fill a fountain pen. And this pen that I got right here in the middle is the Coral Color TWSBI Eco T, and it's a limited edition color, so I know that some people are going to be curious about how it looks kind of in real life. And so what I've done is I've put two other TWSBI colors that are similar right next to it, so you can kind of compare them. I think the Coral is an accurate name. I love the color Coral, as you know, and that's why I'm going to be putting this Lamy Coral Color ink in the pen. This specific ink is also a limited color that you can't get anymore, but there's like a diamine coral that you can get instead if you want something very, very similar. And then the other color I'm going to be inking up these pens with is going to go in this blue TWSBI, and it is Robert Oster Black Violet. And I've used this a little bit before, and it's really very, very black with like just the tiniest hint of something that you could call violet if you're feeling generous. And so I'm just going to get right into it, and we're going to start by having a look at the pen here. The TWSBIs are filled with a piston, so this piece in the back here goes up and down and sucks ink into the pen or pushes it back out. So I'm going to twist this back part, and that is going to move the piston, as you can see, and I'm going to twist it all the way down so it's touching that little ridge on the inside. I'm going to put the pen down into the ink so the nib is submerged, and that's the part you write with, the pointy part. I want that whole metal piece to be submerged, and then we're going to twist it back out, and it's going to slowly suck ink into the pen. And there we have it. The pen has ink in it. This is where I like to take a paper towel and shake off the ink and then just kind of sop the ink off of the grip and off of the edge of the nib. You don't want to like swipe it too much because the parts of the pen used for writing will lose ink that way. We just want to make sure we get all the ink off the outside so that when we write with it we don't get ink onto our hands. And with that, it's good to go. It's really that easy. Fountain pens aren't too difficult to figure out. Each one is filled a little bit differently, but they're all pretty straightforward. You put the pen into the ink, you suck the ink up into the pen, and then you wipe off the outside and it's good to go. So we're going to put the cap back on that and go over to the other pen. And because this ink is in a sample file, it's very small, it's harder to fill pens from this tiny thing, though it can be done. I have already used some of the ink out of this sample, so the level is even lower than it would be otherwise. So I like to use a syringe. I just have this little syringe from Goulet Pens. You can get a couple of them for a few dollars, so they're really inexpensive, and they can make filling with every last bit of the sample much easier. The only thing is the TWSBI, because it's all one piece, there's no converter that holds the ink that you can take out and fill. You do have to be a little bit more hands-on and remove the nib and feed from the pen in order to fill it with ink with a syringe. And if you're worried at all about damaging the pen, I would not try it, just because there is a risk if you twist it too hard or if you yank on it too hard that you can break the feed, but I'll show you as easily as I can. You want to grab the nib and the feed together like this and just pull it gently until it slides out of the grip of the pen, and just set those aside, and then you can use the syringe to just suck up the ink. And there's a little hole inside that section there. You can see it if you look down into the pen. You want to put the syringe into that hole so you can fill the actual body of the pen and not just fill up the grip. And then to get the nib and feed back in, you'll see the feed, this plasticky part, has a little notch in it. where the nib goes, just make sure it's aligned with that. And after you push it in, make sure that pointy part goes into the hole that you use to fill the pen. And make sure, give the nib a little push downwards and make sure it's fully seated against the feed in that little notch or the little indentation. Because if it's not, if it's poking out a little bit, your pen will leak when you try to use it, which I've done before and it's made a big mess. So just make sure everything is lined up the way it needs to be and your pen is good to go. The only thing is that in order to get the ink to the end of the nib, when you fill it from the bottle like we did before, all that ink goes through the feed and it fills it up with ink. But when we fill it with the syringe, the feed doesn't have any ink in it. It needs to get kind of primed up. So I just shake it a little bit gently. Make sure you don't hit the nib on anything. You don't shake it too hard so the ink just comes like flying out the end. Just a few gentle shakes downward. Try to write with it. If it doesn't work, just shake it a couple more times. And eventually gravity and the shaking motion will get the ink down into the nib and it will start to write. And that's it. We are all inked up. It just took a couple minutes and now we are ready to use these for probably weeks, especially since I filled the coral one so full. That one will last me quite a while, I think. As usual, I'm going to start off in this smaller notebook that I use for long-term spreads, like year and month spreads. And I'm just going to flip through to my happiness project. I do actually have some writing time to fill in on this side here, but I just haven't calculated that up yet. And it's fun to note the next month's focus will be coding, which is good because that's kind of what I have been wanting to focus on anyway. And so if I flip through to July, it's gonna look pretty bare. And part of that is warranted, and part of that is just because I haven't been checking in with my notebook as much. I haven't been actually filling in the things I'm doing. So I haven't been doing the daily language learning that I wanted to do. I just never got around to it, really. I don't have an excuse. But I have been learning new things. I have been doing these experiments that I wanted to do. I did take a couple of courses for GraphQL and React.js just like I wanted to. But a lot of that didn't get reflected on this page. And one of the things I'm going to do to address that is, I think after a couple months of saying I want to be better and just not doing it, I think I'm going to take the leap and set an actual alarm to remind myself to check in with my journal every day. It seems a little bit silly, and you might think, oh, if I wanted to keep a journal I would just do it, but it's just a matter of poor time management. And so I think having an alarm to kind of knock me out of whatever I'm doing and switch gears that way, I think that will help a little bit. So I'm gonna try that out and see how it goes. You know, I'm pleased with how the learning efforts went this month, even if I didn't get to everything I wanted to do. So I'm gonna fill that in the journal here. And one thing I think is really important is having the time for these little experiments, for projects that are not really solid long-term projects but that I want to explore. It's good for me, I think, to try new things, and having the time to do that was really nice. So that's one thing that I would like to keep for the future. Now to get into next month's goals. Next month I wanted to focus on getting a little reacquainted with crafting. I have been knitting still, but I haven't been doing much of anything else. So my goals for August are to start and plan gift knitting for Christmas. Every year I start a little bit earlier because I'm always running behind. I also want to spin one skein of yarn and do one lacework project. It'll probably be a fairly small project, but I just want to start something and finish it and have one complete piece of lacework. That's one of the things I've been learning very recently, so I'm not very good at it and I want to get better at it. So nothing crazy next month. It's going to be a pretty chill month, and I think that's going to give me some time to focus on some other projects that I want to do while still kind of expanding what I'm working on and adding a little bit of crafting back in. And I'm just going to do a little bit of journaling about how I think this month will go. I think one of the big things is that I need to find gifts I can make with the yarn I have, since I don't really have a budget for new yarn, and yarn can be very expensive. And I also want to be able to clear off a space on or near my desk, so that I have somewhere for projects to sit when I'm not working on them. I heard someone talk about this a long time ago about how we're much more likely to work on projects if we can get into them easier. And so having to kind of dig something out of a closet or out of a drawer every time I want to work on it is work, and it's work that I'm not going to want to do. So part of setting up for this month is finding a place where I can leave in progress projects that are easy to get back into. Moving right along, I never really came up with a name for this next spread, but I've been keeping these like overviews of monthly goals that are broken down from my goals for the end of the year, and so we're gonna work on that page. This is gonna look very different in August. So one of the problems that I had before was that the way I have this set up, there's really only room for 4 weeks in this spread, and many months, if not all of them, I guess probably not February, have a little bit more than 4 weeks because they're 30 or 31 days rather than 28. And so for July, I just started a little late and put some of the days from the end of the month in that first week. So it's kind of messy and I'm not a huge fan of it. So what I'm gonna do is keep the left side and also put these broken down action items in with the goals. And then in my monthly, daily bullet journal, I'm gonna put weekly tracking sections in each week as I set up rather than keeping all of them in one place here. And I've kind of brainstormed what I want to do with my goals this month. I've been changing them a little bit month to month to fit with what's realistic. So I'm going to talk about each of my goals very quickly. The first one is a net worth goal. I'm in a bit of debt now and I would like to not be in debt. And so my goal is to actually maintain my net worth next month because it's going to be pretty heavy on home expenses. And I'm going to do that by monitoring how much of my just discretionary spending I'm spending. So food, transportation, eating out at restaurants, buying things that I want but don't need. All of this is going to be tallied up, and my average per day should be less than $35. So it's a little bit different than how I was tracking it last month, and I think it's going to be easier to understand. For health, I'm going for a weight loss goal, and I'm going to do that by tracking my food daily and walking 8,000 steps per day. And then I've also set aside goals for time spent crafting, writing, working on the app I am working on, the mobile app I'm doing, and then also game development work. And each of those are just time-based goals, and then the final one is a goal to connect on social media regularly. And I did not do very well with that goal last month, and I'm just hoping to do a little better this month. So really the only setup for this in this notebook is that I'm going to write out all of the goals that I just talked about. I'm going to color code them, and then I'm going to do a little bit of journaling on the right side, similar to how I do it for my happiness project goals, but these are just going to be more focused on what I hope to accomplish and why. So a little bit about my intentions and what I think I can have at the end of the month if I stick to all these goals. And then next month, instead of kind of brainstorming in a separate notebook, I'm going to come back to this notebook and write down the things that I thought went well and things that didn't go as well. And it's just going to keep all of my thoughts in one place rather than scattering them among all these different notebooks that I kind of use for scrap paper or for random thoughts that I'm having about things. This way, if I want to look at this little experiment later, I have all the information I need in one place and I don't have to know, oh, when I wrote this, I also was doing some writing in this other notebook. It's all together, and that's the way it should be. And because I have my monthly goals over here, I'm not actually going to be putting any monthly spreads at all in this other notebook, which is probably a first for me. I don't know if I've ever done that. I'm going to flip through the couple pages that I got for July. I really just didn't journal much at all, and it was very sporadic. Here's my actual monthly pages for July, just these two that I set up last month. I have gotten most of the items on this list done. I haven't checked them all off yet because some of them are waiting till the end of the month. I wrote a couple things down in the success log, but they're pretty spread out. I didn't visit this page as often as I would have liked to, and so again, that's going to be addressed by setting an alarm to journal, which still seems weird to me, but I think it's going to be better in the long run. And so after setting that up, I got a couple of pages done in this journal. You can see I've grouped days together and skipped a whole bunch of days. And I actually did some UI design work on this page. That's not actually journaling at all, but it's fine. I've said before, and I know like I keep getting down on myself for not using this journal a certain way, but it really is however you want to use it. I just want to be using it more. Like that's something I want for myself, and so I'm disappointed that I'm not meeting my own expectations. But for now, this is going to be my goal. I'm going to put weekly stuff here on the left page. I'm going to have my little color-coded action item list at this top section, some goals for the week down in the middle, and I actually noticed I put monthly goals in the video down here, so that is gonna have to change. But the idea is that I set up one of these for every week, and then the next week I make a new one, so I'm never looking too far ahead, but I'm always keeping those goals in mind that are gonna stretch throughout the whole month. I'm also doing something I haven't done in a long time, which is setting up places for my dailies to go. They're going to be pretty loose. I'm just going to divide the little column here into 3 sections, and it's going to be for habit reminders, tasks, and journaling. So I don't know, that daily structure will probably change drastically throughout the month as I figure out what I like. But I think having a place to write things down in ready to go at the start of the week might help with my habit of not using my journal. I don't know. I'm trying all kinds of stuff. I'm gonna see what sticks, and then I'm gonna keep what I think is working for me. One thing that I know is working is the conversion of these action items into percentages or like scores, and so that's another thing I'm carrying into this weekly spread, is the idea of each time I complete one of these action items or habits or whatever you want to call them, the way that I wanted them done, that's going to be worth a point. And all of these are going to be tallied up. If I did all of them, that's 100%. If I did half of them, that's 50%. And I'm going to just keep counting and measuring what I'm doing, and those numbers are going to be what convince me at the end of the day, if I'm tired, if I don't feel like writing, or if I don't feel like tracking my food, it's going to remind me, if I don't do this, I'm not going to get that point. And you know, this this is something that they use for like children, like, oh, you won't get a gold star if you don't do your homework. It's effective. You know, some people are very numbers driven, and I am one of those people. So converting everything into numbers, well, I think you can definitely go overboard. I have to be careful not to lose the human side of life. But I think this is an effective way of motivating myself to do things, is by making things quantifiable and assigning numbers to them. So we're gonna see how it goes. I'm gonna make sure to fill in all these action items at the beginning of the week so that they're ready to go. All I have to do is make a check mark in these little grid squares and then tally them up at the end of the week. And what I'm also gonna do is bust out that Coral TWSBI Eco, and I'm going to put some decorations around the edge of this page, just little spiral patterns. One of my favorite patterns, it's very easy to do, and I like to do them in clusters around the borders, not like a solid pattern along the entire background of the page, because that's a lot of work and it can look a little too busy, but just little clusters of spirals with like tiny ones kind of surrounding them like an aura. I don't know, I just think these look really nice and they give you something to look at on an otherwise very utilitarian page. If you're not a fan of spirals, you can do this with other little shapes like little leaf shapes or just squares, or circles. You can just do circles that you fill in, or triangles, you know, whatever little shape you want to do, you can just decorate however you like. So if you want to see how all this looks once it's filled in, don't forget to subscribe here to see next month's planning video, or Instagram, where I'm hoping to post a lot more than I have been. I'm also thinking about adding a different type of video to my channel. I put up a poll in an Instagram story about it, and I didn't get a lot of feedback about whether I should do this on this channel or on a new channel specifically for this, but I want to do some Sims 4 gameplay challenge videos. So I'm gonna do a series of videos for a Sims 4 challenge, and I'll probably put them on this channel and just see how they're received, and then I might move them later. But if you're into that at all, subscribing is free and it will let you know when those videos go up. Whether you decide to subscribe or not, thank you so much for watching. I'll be back here with another video next month at the very latest. I'm pretty excited to see how these spreads work out for me this month, and so I'll be posting on Insta letting you know what's going on. I'll be back soon, and I hope to see you there. Bye!